The moon hung heavy over the ancient city of Thebes, its silver light spilling across the temple walls where gods had once spoken and kings had once bled. The year was 1250 BCE, and Egypt stood as the most powerful empire on earth, yet within its golden palaces, among the perfumes and silks, there existed a silence darker than the tombs of the pharaohs themselves. Every daughter of the royal bloodline was told the same thing from birth: you are born of Ra's light, destined to serve the gods through obedience. But behind those sacred words hid a truth so terrifying that few dared whisper it. For when an Egyptian princess was betrothed, her wedding night was not a moment of love or celebration. It was a ritual of pain, control, and ancient superstition. It was said that the gods themselves watched from the walls of the temple, judging every cry and every drop of blood. The story begins with Princess Neferura, daughter of the mighty Pharaoh Amenhotep. At 16, she had been raised in golden isolation, her skin bathed in lotus oil, her body trained to move like a dancer before the gods, her mind taught the sacred verses of Mat. Yet despite the splendor, fear followed her like a shadow, for she knew what awaited her, the whispers of older maidservants filled the palace corridors. They spoke of the night of binding, the sacred but savage ritual that turned a princess into a wife. They said the gods demanded purity, and that the first touch of a royal husband had to be witnessed and blessed by the priests themselves. To defy the custom was to bring a curse upon Egypt. Neferura had seen the tears of her cousins after their own ceremonies, the hollow eyes, the trembling hands, the quiet withdrawal that followed. But no one spoke aloud. The royal bloodline had to be preserved at any cost, even if it meant the princess became a sacrifice to tradition. On the eve of her wedding, the palace transformed into a labyrinth of gold and fire. Torches lined the marble halls. The scent of frankincense filled the air. Musicians played soft, mournful notes as slaves dressed Neferura in linen so fine it was nearly transparent. The gown shimmered like moonlight, embroidered with symbols of fertility, the lotus, the scarab, the eye of Horus, yet beneath the beauty, her hands shook. Her mother, Queen Tai, entered the chamber, tall, regal, but her eyes heavy with sorrow. She placed her hands on Neferura's shoulders and whispered, "My daughter, do not resist the gods. You must endure. It is the way of our blood." Those words struck Neferura harder than any slap. Endure, that was all she was meant to do. When the sun fell and the temple drums began to sound, she was led by torchlight to the sanctuary of Hathor, goddess of love and fertility. The air was thick with incense. The marble floor gleamed with oil. And there, waiting before the sacred altar, stood her future husband, Prince Thutmose, heir to the throne. His face carved with arrogance and expectation. The high priest approached with a golden staff topped by the Ankh, the symbol of life. His voice boomed through the chamber, by the will of Ra, by the breath of Isis, the princess shall surrender her body so the gods may bless this union. A chill ran down Neferura's spine around them. Priests and priestesses formed a silent circle, their eyes hidden behind masks of jackals and falcons. They were witnesses, not to love, but to obedience. This was not a wedding. It was a ritual sacrifice to purity, performed again and again through centuries of royal blood. When Thutmose reached for her, the temple went silent. Every sound, every breath vanished. Neferura felt her pulse echo in her ears like a drum of war. She wanted to run, to scream, but even that was forbidden. The gods demanded she remain still, but deep inside her, something ancient stirred, a voice that belonged not to fear, but to defiance. Why must I bleed for the gods? That question, once thought unspeakable, would soon unravel a secret Egypt had buried for 3,000 years, as the ritual began. Neferura noticed the flicker of a shadow beyond the altar, an old woman cloaked in black linen, standing among the masked attendants. Her eyes were fixed on the princess, glowing faintly like embers. When Neferura's gaze met hers, the woman gave a slight nod, a silent warning. Or perhaps an invitation. Asterisk that night, as the drums echoed and the torches burned low, something went terribly wrong. Asterisk when dawn broke, the temple doors remained closed. No servants entered, no music played. The air smelled of copper and smoke. The guards whispered that the prince had been found unconscious, the altar overturned, and the princes missing. Asterisk the pharaoh's fury shook the palace. Search parties combed the desert. Messengers were sent to every shrine and necropolis. Yet Neferura was gone, as if the gods themselves had swallowed her. Asterisk in the years that followed, her name was erased from every record, her statues smashed, her face chiseled out of reliefs. But in the hidden corridors beneath Thebes, whispers persisted that the princes had escaped into the darkness of the necropolis, guided by the woman in black, to seek the forbidden knowledge of the priestesses of Sekhmet. Asterisk for it was said that beneath the sands there existed a secret order of women, former princesses, slaves, and temple maidens, who had survived the rituals and vowed vengeance against the priests who had bound them. They called themselves the Daughters of Blood. Asterisk, and they carried with them the memory of every royal girl who had cried beneath the golden altars. Asterisk centuries later, archaeologists would discover fragments of a forbidden manuscript buried in the tomb of an unknown priestess. The papyrus was damaged, but the words that remained were chilling. Asterisk greater than, they said we were born for the gods, but we were only born to bleed for men. The daughters of the Nile remember, the river drinks their secrets, but one day the truth shall rise again. Asterisk those words would ignite the greatest archaeological mystery of the 19th century and lead historians to question everything they thought they knew about royal Egypt. Asterisk, but the horror had begun long before any modern scholar uncovered the truth. It began with a single night when a young princess dared to defy her fate and vanished into legend. Asterisk the priest told the pharaoh that Neferura's disappearance was an omen, a punishment from the gods for breaking the sacred law. To restore balance, they ordered a new ritual, one that would ensure no other princess ever dared to rebel. Asterisk, every royal bride from that day onward would be marked before her wedding, a symbol burned into her skin. Just above the heart, in the shape of the Eye of Horus, it was meant to protect her soul. But in truth, it was a brand of ownership. Asterisk the royal women learned to smile through the pain, to hide their terror behind painted eyes and gold jewelry. And though the centuries passed, their suffering remained written in secret hieroglyphs hidden deep within the temples of Karnak and Luxor, words no man dared translate. Asterisk, because they spoke of the forbidden truth, that Egypt's divine order was built not on the power of gods, but on the silence of its women. Asterisk the same silence that still haunts the halls of forgotten tombs, where the names of princesses have been scraped from stone, as if history itself was ashamed. But history forgets nothing, and beneath the desert, the story of Princess Neferura still waits to be heard, the story of a girl who chose defiance over fear, and whose fate would expose the darkest secret of Egypt's golden age. Asterisk, the secret that every Egyptian princess learned too late, that the wedding night was never meant to be sacred. Asterisk, it was meant to be a warning. The desert night was cold, the kind of cold that gnawed at the bones. Beneath a pale crescent moon, a figure stumbled across the dunes, barefoot, her wedding gown torn and stained. Neferura no longer looked like a princess. The gold had been stripped from her arms, her crown lost in the sand. All that remained was the trembling breath of a girl who had escaped the gods. Asterisk behind her, the sacred city of Thebes glimmered faintly on the horizon, the torches of the temple still burning like angry eyes. The priests were searching for her. The punishment for fleeing a divine ritual was death, not by sword but by erasure. The priests would destroy every trace of her name, every carving, every image. To the world, she would cease to exist. Asterisk, but Neferura was not ready to be forgotten. Asterisk, her feet bled as she crossed the desert plain, guided only by the distant shape of the Valley of the Kings. The wind howled through the tomb entrances, carrying voices, whispers of women who had once walked this same path centuries apart. Each whisper spoke of pain, of betrayal, of an ancient order hidden beneath the sands. By dawn, she collapsed beside a half-buried statue of Sekhmet, the lion-headed goddess of vengeance and healing. It was then that the woman in black appeared. Once more, her face hidden beneath a hood, her hands scarred by age and fire. "You survived," the woman said, her voice low and rasped like the shifting sand. Neferura stared, trembling. "Who are you?" "I am what your priests fear," she answered. "A daughter who remembers." The woman led her into a narrow crevice between rocks, revealing a staircase carved deep into the earth. The air grew colder with each step. Torches flickered along the walls, illuminating carvings, images of women kneeling before the gods, their faces twisted in agony. Yet beneath each image was a single symbol, a drop of blood falling into a river. At the base of the stairs lay a cavern lit by fire. Dozens of women stood in silence, some old, some young, their bodies adorned with sacred tattoos, their eyes sharp with defiance. "This," said the woman, "is the sanctuary of Sekhmet. Here no priest commands, here the gods listen to us." Neferura fell to her knees. She could hardly breathe. "They will find me," she whispered. "They will kill me." The woman touched her shoulder gently. "No, child. They will say you are dead. And in that lie you shall find freedom." That night, Neferura was reborn. Her silk gown was replaced by a plain linen robe. Her royal jewelry was melted into dust and cast into the fire. As the flames hissed, the elder women began to chant, a low, rhythmic sound that echoed through the cavern like a heartbeat. They marked her wrists with red pigment, drawing the ancient sigil of the eye that sees the hidden. It was not the eye of Horus, the mark of submission, but the forbidden's counterpart, the eye of Sekhmet, symbol of vengeance. "You are one of us now," the elder said. "A daughter of blood, you will remember every scream they tried to silence." Years passed. While the kingdom above continued its rituals and coronations, Neferura trained in the shadows. She learned to read the ancient languages forbidden to women. She studied the secrets of healing and of poison. The daughters had become more than survivors. They were keepers of knowledge too dangerous for the temples to allow. By candlelight, they preserved the stories of every royal woman who had been offered to the gods. They wrote not in ink, but in mixtures of red ochre and blood, believing that only through sacrifice could truth endure. One scroll told of Princess Neferura, who was buried alive in a wedding tomb to please the gods of fertility. Another told of Queen Nefertari, who dared to resist the priests and was condemned to madness by ritual isolation. Each story ended the same way, with silence, erasure, and forgotten bones. But Neferura refused to accept silence as fate. One night, she approached the elder, the same woman who had saved her. "If we remain hidden, their power grows. The priests will continue to bind every girl in gold and fear. We must make them see what they have done." The elder studied her. To defy the priests is to defy the gods themselves. Neferura's eyes burned with quiet fire. "Then let the gods judge us." Her defiance spread through the cavern like wildfire. The younger daughters gathered around her, whispering plans that had not been spoken in centuries. They would not fight with swords, but with the one thing the priests could not destroy: truth. Their first act was in Thebes itself. During the Feast of the Nile, when the priests and nobles gathered to honor the flood, a veiled woman entered the temple of Amun. She carried a small clay jar sealed with wax. When she reached the altar, she shattered it against the stone. Inside was not perfume, but a scroll written in crimson. As the ink ran down the steps, the words became visible under the torchlight. "The daughters of Egypt bleed for your gods no more." Panic erupted. The priests cried blasphemy. But the message had already been seen, and whispers began to spread through the city. Who were these daughters? Was the royal line cursed? Had the gods turned against the priests? To silence the rumors, the Pharaoh ordered a purge. Dozens of temple maidens disappeared overnight. The tombs of priestesses were sealed with curses warning, "Speak not of the forbidden women." But it was too late. The daughters had already scattered across Egypt, carrying their scrolls to distant temples, embedding their words in murals, encoding their truths in hieroglyphs that scholars would later misread as prayers. They became ghosts within history, invisible but everywhere. As for Neferura, her fate became the greatest mystery of all. Some said she was captured and executed in secret, her body thrown into the Nile. Others claim she became a high priestess of Sekhmet in the south, teaching young women the sacred arts. But one legend, hidden in a papyrus discovered near Abydos, tells a different story. It says that Neferura returned to Thebes in disguise many years later, posing as a servant within the temple that once enslaved her. By night she entered the vaults and rewrote the sacred texts, inserting hidden messages among the hymns, words that only a woman could understand. When the priests read them aloud, believing they were praising the gods, they unknowingly spoke verses that cursed their own order, greater than "For every daughter you bind, the sands shall swallow your name, for every tear you command, the gods shall forget your face." Soon after, a series of strange events struck the royal city. Temples burned without cause. The high priest of Amun was found dead in his chamber, a serpent coiled around his neck. The Nile turned red for a single night, an omen recorded in the king's annals as the wrath of Sekhmet. Terrified, the pharaoh ordered the destruction of all temples dedicated to the lion goddess. But the fires consumed more than stone, they burned away the truth itself. The names of women were erased from inscriptions, their faces scratched from tombs, their stories lost to time. Only centuries later, when explorers unearthed the ruins, did they find fragments of red-stained papyrus, murals depicting women holding torches instead of lotus flowers, and a recurring inscription, "We remember." The scholars of the 19th century dismissed these findings as myth, the product of superstition. But one archaeologist, Margaret Blake, in 1892, uncovered a sealed chamber beneath the Temple of Luxor. Inside was a sarcophagus unlike any other. Instead of royal symbols, its carvings showed a circle of women standing before Sekhmet, their eyes open and unflinching. Within the coffin lay a perfectly preserved mummy, its face covered by a golden mask, depicting a serene young woman. In her hands she held a scroll bound in red thread. The hieroglyphs upon it read, greater than I am Neferura, daughter of Pharaoh, servant of Sekhmet. I was born to be silent, but I became the voice of the forgotten. Let no man call this blasphemy, for truth is the only God that endures. When the British Museum acquired the mummy, the scroll was mysteriously lost in transport. Only a few sketches of its text survived, but they were enough to awaken a storm of debate among Egyptologists. Was this the same Neferura erased from history? Was the legend of the Daughters of Blood real? The Egyptian government, fearing outrage, ordered the tomb resealed. But locals still tell stories of the Bride of Sekhmet, a spirit who walks the Valley of the Kings during the new moon, her gown trailing through the sand, her eyes like burning coals. They say she visits the tombs of forgotten women, whispering their names so that the wind may carry them to the stars, and sometimes, late at night, when the desert is still, the air trembles with a sound that is neither wind nor animal, a low, rhythmic chant echoing from the earth, greater than we remember. We remember. 3,000 years have passed, and yet the horror remains buried beneath Egypt's beauty. The same temples that tourists marvel at once witnessed the screams of princesses who were told their pain was divine. Their faces may be gone, their names chiseled away, but their defiance survived in the cracks of history. Every time the Nile floods, the river carries their memory, red and silent, but unbroken. For in the end, Egypt's greatest secret was not its tombs or its treasures, but the voices of its women, buried alive beneath gold and prayer. waiting for the day when the world would finally listen. Asterisk, and if you stand in the desert long enough, beneath the endless stars, you might hear it too, the whisper of a princess who dared to challenge the gods. Asterisk, I was Neferura, daughter of Egypt. I was the fear that made kings tremble. I was the bride who refused to bleed for your gods.